The candle had burned low. Wax slid down the brass holder like it was tired of standing straight, just like him. John Jungkook sat alone at the long oak table, quill resting between his fingers, unmoving. The royal study of Valamont Kingdom was silent, too silent for a crown prince who had ruled meetings all day. 22 years old, crown prince of Valamont. And yet his hand trembled. "Why?" he whispered hoarsely, staring at the parchment. "Do you still come back, even after all these years?" The paper in front of him was already filled, uneven lines, crossed words, ink smudged where his hand had paused too long. "My first love," he scoffed quietly, breath shaky. "First?" Jungkook muttered bitterly. "You were my only one." The quill dropped from his fingers. He leaned back, eyes drifting to the tall window where moonlight poured in, cold and pale. And just like that, he was 8 again. "Stop staring like that," a small voice echoed in his mind, soft and amused. "Your face turns red every time." Jungkook swallowed. He pressed his palm to his chest now, like it hurt there. "Tae." His voice cracked on the nickname. "Why did you always say my name like it was a secret?" He shut his eyes, and there he was. Roseberry. Not a prince. Not royal blood. Just a boy with eyes that shone, not because of jewels, but because they were alive. Eyes that curved when he smiled. Eyes that looked at Jungkook like he wasn't a crown. Just a boy worth listening to. Jungkook laughed weakly. "You used to blush first, you know that?" Silence answered him. His jaw tightened. "But then I was the one who couldn't breathe," he whispered. "Every time you talked, every time you smiled like that, I felt stupid, shy, like I was doing something wrong just by liking you." His fingers curled against the table. "I remember everything," he said quietly, accusation laced with pain. "Do you hear me? I remember every moment." He picked up the quill again, staring at the ink-stained tip. "You used to sit beside me," Jungkook continued, voice low, breaking, "and you'd whisper." He paused, throat closing. "Jungkook, when you become king, don't forget me." A breath escaped him, half laugh, half sob. "I promised you," he whispered. "I promised." Ink splashed onto the page as his hand shook. "But you disappeared." The word tasted rotten. "Roseberry," Jungkook said softly, painfully. "Everyone tells me first love fades." His eyes burned. "So tell me," he demanded the empty room, "why do you still feel like a wound that never healed?" The candle flickered. Jungkook bent forward, resting his forehead against the table. "I became everything they wanted," he murmured. "A prince, a future king." His voice dropped to a whisper. "But when I think of you, I'm still just that boy who waited for you to smile at him." Tears hit the parchment. One, then another. "I forgot the promise," he admitted finally, the truth tearing out of him. "And I think that's the moment I lost you." The ink bled, and so did he. The knock came softly, once, then twice. Jungkook didn't look up. "Go away," he murmured, voice still rough from creaked anyway. "Oppa," a small voice called. He stiffened. "Ara?" His younger sister stepped inside, hands folded in front of her. She looked at him the way she always did, careful, like he might break if she spoke too loudly. "Ioma is calling you," she said gently. She said, "Now." Jungkook exhaled, eyes falling shut. "Tell her I'll come later." Ara didn't move. "She's in her chamber," she added softly. "And she looks worried." That word did it. He opened his eyes, jaw tightening. "She's always worried," he muttered. "That's her job." Ara bit her lip. She glanced at the table, the parchment, the spilled ink, the candle burning low. She understood more than anyone thought. "She's not angry," Ara said quietly. "She just misses you." That hurt more than anger would have. Jungkook stood up slowly, straightening his coat like armor. "I'll come," he said, tone flat. "You can go." Ara hesitated, then nodded. Before leaving, she turned back. "Oppa," she whispered. "Don't fight her today." The door closed, and Jungkook stood there alone again, except the ache followed him. The Pak Luna's chamber smelled of herbs and moonflowers. His mother stood near the window, moonlight outlining her calm, powerful presence. The woman who ruled beside the Alpha King. The woman who had carried an entire pack on her shoulders. She turned the moment he entered. "Jungkook," she said. No title, no command, just his name. He bowed his head. "Aomanim." She studied him, really looked. Not the prince, not the heir, her son. "How long," she asked quietly, "is this going to continue?" His fingers curled at his sides. "Aomanim," he said, controlled but strained, "please don't start." Her eyes softened instantly. That softness was worse than anger. "Look at me," she said. He didn't want to, but he did. And the moment their eyes met, something in her broke just a little. "You haven't slept," she said. "You avoid meals. You avoid people. You avoid me." She stepped closer. "How long will you punish yourself like this?" Jungkook swallowed. "I'm not punishing myself," he replied quietly. "I'm surviving." Her breath hitched. "By refusing the bond?" she asked. "By rejecting every proposal?" He shook his head sharply. "By staying honest." Silence fell between them. She reached up, cupping his face gently, thumbs brushing beneath his eyes where dark shadows lived. "My son," she whispered. "You are the future Alpha King." "I know," he snapped, then immediately softened. "I know." "Then why?" she asked, voice trembling now. "Do you look like a man already mourning his life?" That question cut deep. He stepped back. "Because you're asking me to forget," Jungkook said, voice shaking despite himself. "And I can't." She closed her eyes. "We're asking you to move forward," she corrected softly. He laughed under his breath, bitter, hollow. "Forward into someone else's arms?" he asked. "Into a bond that feels like a lie?" She opened her eyes again. "I hope," she said carefully, "that you will love your prince's chosen mate." That did it. "Don't," Jungkook whispered sharply. "Please don't say it like that." "Why?" she asked. "Because it scares you?" "No," he said, voice breaking now. "Because it hurts." He pressed a hand to his chest. "You want obedience?" he said. "Fine, I'll give you obedience." He lifted his gaze, eyes shining but hard. "I will do whatever you wish," Jungkook said slowly. "But not this." Her breath trembled. "Jungkook, I won't replace him," he whispered fiercely. "I won't pretend my heart is empty when it's not." Tears welled in her eyes. "And what about your duty?" she asked. "What about my soul?" He shot back. The room went still. From the corner, Ara stood silently, having slipped in unnoticed. She looked between them, knowing this was the end of the conversation. Jungkook noticed her then. He straightened, walls slamming back into place. "I have duties to attend," he said calmly, too calmly. "Excuse me, Omanim." She reached for him, but stopped. "Jungkook," she whispered. He paused at the door, back to her. "I loved once," he said quietly, "and that love never left me." Then, softer, "If that makes me weak, then I'll carry that weakness alone." He walked out. Ara watched him go, heart aching. She turned to their mother, the voice barely audible. "He's already lost," she said. "Please don't make him lose more." The Pak Luna closed her eyes and prayed for the boy her son still was. The door closed behind Jungkook with a sound too soft for something so final. Ara didn't move for a long moment. The Pak Luna remained where she was, hands clasped tightly in front of her, head bowed, not in defeat, but in helpless prayer. "He's already lost," Ara had said. Those words stayed in the air like smoke. The Luna opened her eyes slowly. They were wet, but steady. "I know," she replied, "and that is what frightens me." Ara swallowed. "Then why are we still pushing him?" "Because," her mother said quietly, "the world will not be gentle with a king who loves the wrong way." Ara shook her head. "He's not a king yet. He's just my brother." The Luna looked at the door Jungkook had gone through. "He was never just anything," she said softly, "not even as a child." Jungkook walked the long corridor alone. Courtiers bowed, guards straightened, servants lowered their eyes. He saw none of it. His steps were steady, practiced, duty carved into his bones, but inside, something dragged behind him, bleeding. "I'll carry that weakness alone." The words echoed back at him, cruel and familiar. Weakness. That was what they had called it back then, too. The council chamber doors opened. "Crown Prince John," an elder announced. Jungkook took his seat at the head of the table, face unreadable, hands folded neatly. They discussed borders, trade, alliances, voices droned on, and yet, all Jungkook could hear was a much smaller voice buried deep in memory. "Jungkook, wait for me!" His fingers twitched. 17 years ago, before the crown felt heavy, before love learned how to hide, the palace gardens had been louder then, children's laughter instead of whispers. Taeyoung had been 5. Small, too thin, hair always falling into his eyes no matter how many times the maids fixed it. Jungkook, 7, had stood in front of him like a shield. "Don't shout!" Jungkook had scolded seriously. "They'll hear you." Taeyoung had just grinned, eyes bright like he carried the sun inside them. "I want them to hear," he'd said. "Then they'll know you're mine." Jungkook had flushed red, ears burning. "I'm not yours," he'd argued weakly. Taeyoung had tilted his head. "Then why do you always come when I call?" That had silenced him. And later, when they sat beneath the old rose tree, petals falling into Taeyoung's hair like blessings, Jungkook had said it. Not loudly, not bravely. "I'll marry you," he'd whispered, like it was the most obvious truth in the world. Taeyoung had blinked. "What's marry?" Jungkook had thought for a moment. "It means," he'd said slowly, "you won't ever be taken away." The council elder's voice snapped him back. "Your Highness?" Jungkook inhaled, straightened. "Yes," he said calmly. "Proceed." No one noticed the way his jaw clenched. No one ever did. That same night, so many years ago, the palace had gone quiet too early. No laughter, no footsteps near the servants' quarters. Jungkook had known something was wrong when Taehyung didn't come running. He had waited. And waited. Until shouting rose from the far end of the village. Firelight painted the sky orange. Jungkook had run, barefoot, panicked, calling a name no one answered. By the time he reached the edge of the Packlands, the Kim house was already broken. Walls cracked. Roof torn open like it had been ripped apart by something furious. Taehyung wasn't there. His parents weren't there, only strangers moving fast, voices sharp, hurried. And his father's voice, cold, final, cut through everything. They will never return. Back in the present, Jungkook's pen snapped in his grip. Ink spilled across the parchment. One of the elders flinched. "Your Highness?" Jungkook stood abruptly. "I need air," he said, voice even. "We'll continue tomorrow." He didn't wait for permission. He found himself in the old garden without remembering the walk there. The rose tree was gone now, cut down years ago. Still, he stood where it had been. "Tae," he whispered, the name tasting like something sacred and forbidden. "Do you still remember?" The wind answered. He laughed softly, bitterly. "They made sure you were far from here," he murmured. "Far enough that even my apologies couldn't reach you." His hand pressed to his chest. "But you took everything with you," he continued quietly, "and left me the crown." He looked up at the dark sky. "I became what they wanted," Jungkook said. "So tell me why it still feels like I failed you." The night didn't answer. And somewhere, far beyond the borders of Valamont, beyond memory and law, the name Jungkook still lived in someone else's heart. Waiting. Soryun Kingdom. Another silence. The scratch of the quill was the only sound in the chamber. A man sat by the window, shoulders straight, posture disciplined, every inch of him trained to look useful, reliable, empty. Moonlight brushed his hands as he wrote. Not his words. Never his. And duty silenced the heart. He paused. The ink trembled, just slightly. His jaw tightened, eyes dark, distant, as if something inside him pressed hard against locked doors. A guard cleared his throat behind him. "The king will want it by dawn," the guard said. "I know," the man replied. His voice was calm, cold, polished to perfection. Too perfect. The guard hesitated. "You write like you've lived 100 lives." The man didn't look back. "I write," he said quietly, "because I'm not allowed to live even one." The guard didn't understand. He never did. When the door closed again, the man let his shoulders drop, just a fraction. He stared at the unfinished parchment. His reflection in the glass looked hollow, like a body that survived while the soul stayed behind somewhere else. "You ask for poetry," he whispered to no one, "but you don't want truth." His fingers curled around the quill so tightly his knuckles whitened. Beyond the palace walls, in a quieter quarter of the kingdom, the Kim family lived, not in comfort, not in peace, but alive. The house was small, wooden, always smelling faintly of herbs and rain-soaked soil. Mrs. Kim woke from nightmares more often than sleep. Mr. Kim rarely spoke after sunset, because night carried fire, night carried shouting, night carried the sound of a home breaking apart. Some memories don't fade, they circulate in blood, pass silently from breath to breath, except Taeyoung, now Taeyun. He was too young. 3 years old, clutching a broken wooden horse, face buried in his mother's chest when it happened. He remembered fragments, not facts. A loud sound, a red sky, someone lifting him and running. He did not remember why. And sometimes that was worse. "Taehyung," his mother called softly. He looked up from the floor where he sat, folding scraps of paper into uneven shapes. "Yes, Ioma?" She studied his face, the same face that once brought danger to their door. "You shouldn't stay out late," she said gently. "The city isn't kind." Taehyung smiled. It was a polite smile, practiced, empty of questions. "I'll be careful," he replied. She wanted to say "you always were," but the words stuck. As he stood, she reached for his wrist. "Do you remember anything?" she asked quietly. Taeyoung froze. He thought for a moment. I remember, he said slowly, that someone promised me something. Her breath caught. And? He shrugged, eyes distant. I don't remember his face, Taeyoung said. But when I hear my name spoken softly, my chest hurts. His mother closed her eyes, because she remembered everything. Later that night, Taehyung returned to his small room. On his desk lay old papers, half-written poems, verses crossed out, words he never submitted, words he never dared sign. He took a fresh sheet, and for the first time, he didn't write for a king. He wrote for a ghost. If I was taken from you before I learned your name, does that mean you forgot me? Or did you learn how to survive without asking why? His hand shook. He pressed it flat against his chest. Why does it feel like I lost something, he whispered, that I never had time to keep? The candle flickered. And somewhere far away, in another kingdom, another man stood beneath an empty rose tree asking the same question. Morning arrived quietly in Jeon Kingdom. Too quietly. Jungkook stood before the tall mirror in his chamber, fastening the last button of his dark coat. The royal insignia rested heavy against his chest, symbol of duty, of power, of everything he had learned to wear instead of his heart. He looked older than 22 today, not by age, by weight. A knock sounded. Come in, he said. The doors opened to reveal King Jeon. The air shifted instantly. Jungkook straightened, instinctive, trained. You leave for the Southern Kingdom by noon, the king said, voice firm, eyes sharp. Trade routes, political assurance, nothing more. I understand, Jungkook replied. Silence stretched. The king stepped closer, too close. And you will not roam, he added. Not the markets, not the streets, not the outer quarters. Jungkook's jaw tightened. I'm not a child anymore, he said carefully. The king's eyes darkened. That, he said coldly, is exactly why I'm saying this. Jungkook looked up sharply. What are you afraid of? A dangerous question. The king didn't answer immediately. He turned away, hands clasped behind his back. Some pasts, he said slowly, should remain buried. You are a king now, not a boy chasing shadows. Jungkook's breath hitched, just slightly. Shadows, he echoed. The king turned back, gaze piercing. You have always had a habit, he said, of searching for things that don't belong to you anymore. Jungkook clenched his fists. You mean people? The room went still. The king's voice dropped, sharp as steel. Do not speak that name, even in your mind. Jungkook swallowed. I don't even remember his face, he said quietly. Just fragments, a voice, a feeling, and sometimes... Enough, the king snapped. He stepped forward, gripping Jungkook's shoulder hard. You will go, you will do your duty, and you will return unchanged. Then, softer, but more threatening, if you dig into the past, it won't just hurt you. Jungkook looked into his father's eyes. And if I don't? He asked. The king released him slowly. Then I failed to erase you properly, he said, and left. Jungkook stood there long after the doors closed. His hand drifted unconsciously to his chest. Roseberry, he whispered. The word tasted forbidden, painful, incomplete. I don't even know why you matter, he murmured, frustration creeping into his voice. So why does it feel like I'm being torn apart every time someone tells me not to look? Outside, the palace horns sounded. Departure. Elsewhere. In Seoryeon Kingdom, Taeyoung folded the parchment carefully, sealing it with wax. The king will be pleased, the steward said. Taeyeon nodded, expression blank. Prepare the royal quarters, the steward continued. A guest king arrives today, from Jeon Kingdom. Taeyoung's hand froze mid-movement. Jeon Kingdom? He repeated softly. Yes, their prime king, Jeon Jungkook. The name hit like a silent thunder. His chest tightened, sharp, sudden, for no reason. Or so he thought. Taeyoung pressed a hand over his heart, brows knitting. Why does that name feel heavy? He whispered to himself. The steward frowned. Did you say something? Taeyoung straightened instantly. No, he replied. Nothing at all. But as he turned away, a single thought echoed, uninvited. Rose. He didn't know why. He didn't know how. But somewhere between two kingdoms, between erased pasts and guarded futures, something long buried had just begun to breathe. After many days of journey, the walls of Seoryeon finally rose before them. White stone towers kissed with age, banners the color of dusk fluttered gently, not proudly, like the kingdom itself didn't need to announce its power. Jungkook reined his horse to a halt. His guards followed suit. Something was wrong. No, something was familiar. His chest tightened, breath turning shallow. Stop, Jungkook said suddenly. The guards exchanged glances. My king? One asked. Jungkook's eyes scanned the air, the streets beyond the gates, the way the wind carried the scent of old roses and ink. His hand slowly curled into a fist. "Why?" he murmured almost angrily. "Does it feel like I've been here before?" No one answered, because no one could. As the gates opened, Seoryeon welcomed him not with loud horns, but with music. Soft strings, slow drums. Respectful, observant. The royal delegation approached. Their king bowed first. Their queen followed. "Welcome to Seoryeon, Prime King Jungkook," the Seoryeon king said warmly. "Your presence honors us." Jungkook nodded, responding perfectly, trained, composed. "The honor is mutual," he said. But his eyes weren't on them. They drifted. To the stone paths, the lanterns, the servants standing in quiet rows. His heart beat faster. He's here. The thought came uninvited. What if my Roseberry is here? The realization startled him so deeply that he inhaled sharply. A guard leaned in. "Is something wrong, my king?" Jungkook shook his head once. "No," he lied. Gifts were presented, silks, manuscripts, ceremonial blades. Jungkook accepted them all with courtesy. But every time someone stepped too close, every time a servant brushed past, his breath stuttered, like his body recognized something his mind had buried. "This kingdom," Jungkook said suddenly, turning to the Seoryeon king. "It feels old." The Seoryeon king smiled faintly. Seoryeon remembers what others forget. Jungkook's pulse jumped. "That's so?" "Yes," the king replied. "Some memories don't disappear. They simply wait for the right soul to return." Jungkook felt dizzy. He pressed his fingers subtly against the table beside him. Roseberry. The name echoed again, too loud, too close. From the upper corridor, Taehyung stood still, frozen. He hadn't meant to stop, hadn't meant to watch. But the moment Jungkook stepped into the courtyard, something inside Taehyung cracked open. His breath caught painfully. His vision blurred. "No," he whispered. He didn't know the man, didn't recognize the face. So why did his heart scream? Why did his fingers curl like they used to clutch something precious? "Taehyung?" a voice called behind him. "You're needed in the library." He swallowed hard. "I'll be there," he replied. As he turned away, his eyes filled not with tears. In the night, Jungkook stood at the balcony of his guest chamber, staring at Seoryeon's moonlit gardens. "I'm close," he whispered into the night. "I don't know to what or to who." His hand rested over his heart. "And it terrifies me." Below, unseen, a single rosebush trembled in the wind. The hall glowed in gold and amber light. Long tables stretched beneath carved pillars, candles burning low, shadows dancing like secrets that refused to sleep. Jungkook sat at the center of honor, posture perfect, expression calm. Too calm. Music. Laughter rose and fell. Yet his chest felt restless, like something was circling him, unseen. The Seoryeon king lifted his cup. "Tonight," he announced warmly, "we celebrate unity and those who give our kingdom its soul." His gaze shifted, fond. "Seoryeon is known not for war," he continued, "but for words." Jungkook's fingers paused mid-movement. Words. "The greatest among them," the king said, pride threading his voice, "is our poet, our writer, a man whose verses have carried even our grief with grace." Jungkook looked up slowly. "What is his name?" he asked. The king smiled. "Kim Taehyun." The world tilted, just for a second. Jungkook's breath caught so sharply he had to grip the edge of the table. Roseberry. The name bloomed in his chest like a wound reopening. "Not Taehyun, not exactly, but close enough to hurt. Kim," Jungkook repeated softly. His voice sounded distant to his own ears. "He writes of love." The king continued, unaware, but never possession. "Of loss, but without bitterness. Many say he writes as if he remembers something he never lived." Jungkook's pulse thundered, that feeling again, that pull. As if someone had reached inside him and tugged at a thread long buried. "Does he write of roses?" Jungkook asked suddenly. The table went quiet. The king blinked. "Roses?" "Yes," Jungkook said, eyes dark, intense. "Does he ever write of roses that don't bloom anymore?" The Seoryeon king studied him, surprised. "Often," he admitted. In fact, his earliest works were signed with a symbol, a rosebud. Jungkook's vision blurred. Roseberry. He swallowed hard. "I would like to read his work," he said carefully. The king nodded. "You shall." Jungkook hesitated. Then, voice lower, "I would also like to meet him." The Seoryeon king smiled, pleased. "It would honor him greatly," he said. "Summon Kim Taehyun tomorrow morning." The words echoed like fate sealing itself. Elsewhere, Kim residence. Taehyung sat by candlelight, revising a poem he hated. Too honest. Too painful. A knock sounded. He frowned. "At this hour?" A royal messenger bowed deeply. By order of His Majesty, the man said, you are summoned to meet Prince John Jungkook tomorrow morning. The name struck him like lightning. John Jungkook. His chest seized painfully. Why? Taeyoung asked, voice unsteady despite himself. The messenger smiled. The prince wishes to meet Soryon's finest poet. Taeyoung nodded slowly. I understand. But when the door closed, he sank onto the chair, hands trembling. Why? He whispered to the empty room. Does his name feel like something I lost? That night, Jungkook stood sleepless, staring at the moon. If you're not him, he murmured, then why do I feel like I'm about to break just by meeting you? Far away, Taeyoung pressed his palm over his heart. I don't know you, he whispered, so why does it feel like I'm about to meet my end? Next morning, Kim residence, Soryeon morning light filtered weakly through the paper windows. Kim Taehyun, sat on the edge of his bed, unmoving, uneasy, like the air itself was warning him. His hands rested on his knees, fingers clenched so tightly his nails bit into his skin. Today felt wrong, not dangerous, not frightening, just heavy, as if something long asleep was about to open its eyes. He exhaled slowly and stood, walking toward the mirror. The man staring back at him looked calm, composed, controlled, a lie. He adjusted his robe mechanically, fingers trembling when they reached the collar. Get it together, he whispered to himself. It's just a meeting. Just a prince. Just words. Just duty. So why did his chest ache? The door slid open softly. Taehyun. Taehyun, his mother called. He turned. Yes, Ioma? She stepped inside, eyes scanning him the way mothers do when they're searching for cracks. You're leaving early, she said. Be back soon. Taehyung hesitated. Soon? She nodded, busying herself with straightening a fold that didn't need fixing. Your uncle's family is arriving today, she said casually. They've brought proposals. The word hit like a slap. Proposals? Taehyung repeated, disbelief creeping into his voice. His mother finally looked at him. You're not a child anymore, she said gently, but firmly. It's time. Taehyung's throat tightened. Ioma, he said slowly, I'm not ready to marry. She sighed. You've been saying that for years. Because it's still true, he replied, voice cracking despite himself. My heart... His father's voice cut through the room like a blade. Your heart is not part of this discussion. Taehyung turned sharply. Appa, he said, startled. His father stood at the doorway, expression unreadable. You will meet them, his father said. You will choose one. And this ends. Taehyung's chest burned. Ends what? He asked, almost pleading. His mother stiffened. That foolishness, she said sharply. Those questions. That look in your eyes every time someone mentions marriage. Taehyung swallowed hard. There's someone, he whispered. I don't know who, but it feels wrong to pretend there isn't. Silence fell. Dangerous silence. His father stepped forward. Do not say that again, he warned. Taehyung shook his head, tears stinging his eyes. I don't even know their face, he said desperately. It's just a blur. But whenever I think of them, I hear a voice. His mother's breath hitched. Taehyung pressed his hand to his chest. A child's voice, he said, breaking. It says, I will marry you, my roseberry. The room froze. His mother went pale. His father's face darkened instantly. Enough, his father snapped. Taehyung flinched. Why? He cried. Why does it hurt so much if it means nothing? Why do my eyes fill with tears when I don't even understand why? His voice dropped to a whisper. Scrap, who cursed me with this feeling? His mother rushed forward and grabbed his shoulders. Never say that word again, she said, shaking. That name, those memories, they are cursed. Taehyung stared at her, tears finally spilling. Then why does my heart remember what my mind doesn't, he asked. His father turned away. Because some memories, he said coldly, should have died with the past. That stung worse than any slap. Taehyung wiped his tears roughly. So I'm just supposed to marry someone else, he said bitterly, and pretend this ache doesn't exist? His mother looked away. Yes, she said quietly. For your own good. Taehyung laughed, soft, broken. My own good, he echoed. He straightened, bowing respectfully, despite the tears. I'll go to the palace, he said, and I'll come back soon. As he turned to leave, his voice cracked one last time. But don't ask me to give my heart away, he said. It already feels like it belongs to someone who vanished. He stepped outside before they could answer. Outside. The morning sun felt too bright. Taehyung inhaled shakily. Roseberry, he whispered without meaning to. His heart clenched violently. I don't know who you are, he murmured, But why does meeting a stranger today feel like I'm walking toward you? Far away, in the palace of Soryeon, Jungkook stood waiting, unaware that the man walking toward him was already breaking. Breakfast ended with formality, conversations about trade, borders, courtesy, smiles. Jungkook responded to all of it flawlessly. Too flawlessly. The moment his duties concluded, he excused himself. "I'd like to walk," he said simply. The attendants bowed. Guards followed at a respectful distance. The palace corridors of Soryeon were different from Jeon Kingdom. Less sharp stone, more curves, more light, more feeling. Jungkook's steps slowed without him realizing. His eyes kept drifting to the walls. Paintings. Not grand portraits, not victories, not kings. These were different. A child standing alone beneath a broken roof. A pair of hands reaching for something just out of frame. A rose without petals, bleeding color into the background. Two shadows almost touching, but never meeting. Jungkook stopped, his breath hitched. "Why do these hurt?" he murmured. He stepped closer, studying the strokes. Messy, emotional, unpolished, like someone painting not what they saw, but what they lost. At the corner of one canvas, faint words were etched. "If I remember, will it destroy me? If I forget, was I ever real?" Jungkook's chest tightened painfully. "This isn't art," he whispered. "This is someone screaming." A guard cleared his throat behind him. "My king." Jungkook didn't turn. "Where is this room?" The guard hesitated. "This is Kim Taehyun's chamber," he said carefully. "He paints here often, writes as well, mostly for the royal archives." Jungkook finally looked back. "Kim Taehyun," he repeated. The name sat heavily on his tongue. "He paints for the royal family?" Jungkook asked. "Yes," the guard replied. "And for you, my prince, upon request." Jungkook frowned. "For me?" The guard nodded. "He was asked to prepare works reflecting memory, legacy, and truth. His Majesty believes no one understands such themes like him." Jungkook turned back to the paintings. Truth, memory, blur. His fingers hovered over the edge of a canvas but didn't touch. "Who paints like this?" he said quietly, "unless they're trying to remember something they were forced to forget?" A sudden unease crawled up his spine. His heart beat faster, too fast, as if it sensed danger, or home. He straightened abruptly. "Send him here," Jungkook said. The guard blinked. "My king?" "Kim Taehyun," Jungkook clarified, voice controlled but tight. "Send him to this room, as you command." The guard turned to leave, then paused. "My king," he added softly, "Kim Taehyun has already arrived at the palace." Jungkook froze. "He has?" "Yes." Something twisted in Jungkook's chest. Unfamiliar, sharp. For a brief, irrational moment, he wanted to leave the room. He inhaled deeply. "Get a grip." "It's nothing," he muttered to himself. "You're imagining things." He straightened his coat, forcing composure. "Bring him here," Jungkook repeated. "I'll meet him among his work." The guard bowed and left. Jungkook turned back to the paintings, trying to focus. Trying. But suddenly every brushstroke felt louder, every color heavier, as if the room itself was holding its breath. He stopped before one final painting, a small one, two children's hands intertwined, one smaller, one trembling. Above it, barely visible, promise. Jungkook's vision blurred. "Why does this feel like mine?" he whispered. Footsteps echoed outside the chamber. Measured, careful, approaching. Jungkook swallowed, heart pounding. He didn't turn around. Didn't know why. He stood there, staring at the painting, unaware that the person about to step inside was the very reason his soul never learned how to forget. Taehyun stepped forward and bowed just as he had been taught. Perfect, respectful, distant. "Your Majesty?" he said softly. The sound of his own voice echoed once, and then Jungkook froze. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but the moment the voice reached him, something inside Jungkook shifted, like a locked door rattling under unseen hands. "No." His breath stuttered. "Why does it feel like that?" He stood there, unmoving, back still turned, staring at a painting he could no longer see. That voice. It didn't belong to a stranger. It belonged to a feeling that had followed him since childhood, nameless and aching. "Your Majesty?" Taehyun repeated, quieter now, unsure. Jungkook's fingers twitched at his side. Turn around. His mind begged him not to. If he turned, something would demand answers he didn't have. Still, slowly, as if resisting gravity itself, Jungkook turned. And the moment their eyes met, the world fell silent. No recognition, no memories rushing back. Just pain. Raw, sudden, deep. Jungkook felt it first. A sharp pressure behind his eyes, a tightness in his chest so fierce it almost hurt to breathe. There you are. The thought surfaced without permission. His lips parted, but no sound came out. His vision blurred. He blinked. Once, twice. A tear slipped free and traced a quiet line down his cheek. Jungkook didn't wipe it away. He didn't even realize it had fallen. Across from him, Taehyun's breath caught harshly. His body reacted before his mind could. His chest tightened, heart pounding like it had been running for something it could never reach. Why does he look like that? Why did seeing this man's face feel like standing in front of a locked memory? Taehyun swallowed, throat burning. His eyes stung. He didn't understand why. He only knew it hurt to look at him, and it hurt even more to look away. Taehyun started, then stopped. His voice betrayed him. Too soft, too fragile. Jungkook watched his lips move and felt something twist painfully inside him. Say something, his mind screamed. Ask him, demand the truth, but his mouth stayed sealed, because what if the answer destroyed what little this feeling still protected? Taehyun lowered his gaze briefly, ashamed of the tears welling up. When he looked back up, his eyes were glassy, searching, begging. Do you feel this too? Please tell me I'm not alone. Jungkook's breath shook. He felt exposed, like Taehyun could see straight through the crown, the title, the armor. I don't know why. Jungkook finally whispered, voice barely there, but it feels like I've been waiting. The words surprised even him. Taehyun's lips trembled. Waiting for what? He asked. Jungkook didn't answer, because he didn't know. Because the answer felt like a name he wasn't allowed to remember. Taehyun pressed his fingers together tightly, grounding himself. His chest hurt, like something precious had slipped through his hands long ago. I feel like, he said softly, eyes shining, if I take one step closer, I'll lose something all over again. Jungkook's heart clenched violently. Me too. Silence swallowed them. Their eyes spoke what their mouths couldn't. Prove it. Tell me this isn't madness. Tell me this pain belongs somewhere. But neither dared, because some truths are too fragile to touch. Jungkook finally looked away first. Not because he wanted to, but because staying felt unbearable. Taehyun remained standing, breath shallow, eyes burning, as if a part of him had just woken up and realized it had been grieving all along.